Welcome back, my friend. In this video we will be doing some basics of algebra. I tried to do one question on each topic. These are also the review questions for Math 237. So the first question would be collecting or adding like terms. Just to remind you, like terms, they have the same letter and the same exponent. So here, first of all, in this expression, I try to identify which terms have the same letter and the same exponent. So let's say x cubed and x cubed. So these two can be added together. 3x cubed and negative 5x cubed, they can be added together to negative 2x cubed. Then the other two terms, which are also like terms, would be negative 4xy and negative 10xy, because both of them have the same letter xy and both of the letters have the same power. So negative 4, negative 10, negative 14, and then x squared z. There are two like terms. We add them together, we get negative 5, and then I have this one would be 3, and the other like term would be 7, which adds to 10. This is an example of subtraction in algebra. So even for the subtraction, you have to find the like terms, and the only difference is that here the coefficients or the constant in front of the letter would be subtracted from one another. So what I'll do here, I have two brackets. The first bracket, whatever it's got inside, subtracted from the second bracket. So first thing, let me explain to you that if there is a number or a sign in front of the in front of a bracket, that number or that sign belongs to each term. So here, this negative sign in front of the second bracket will actually flip the sign of all the terms in the second bracket. So here, the first bracket, I just write it as it is, but in the second bracket, each one the sign is flipped, so it turns into negative xy plus 3 times ab and plus 6. After that, the next step would be finding like terms. Again, like terms are those which have the same letter but different coefficients. So here, xy would be cancelled out with negative xy, that would be 0, but I have negative ab and 3ab, so it adds up to 2ab, and then negative 8 plus 6 adds up to negative 2. In this example, we'll be doing a multiplication. Multiplication is also very important, but here we do not need to identify the like terms. So in multiplying algebraic expression, what you need to do, first thing, like count the terms in the first bracket and count the term in the second bracket. So here you have 2 terms, and in the second bracket you have 3 terms. So you should be expecting 2 times 3 terms, 6 terms in the very first step before simplification. Okay, so before simplification, I expect 6 terms, which could be reduced in number after simplification. Now let's see how it works. So each term from the first bracket should be multiplied by each term in the second bracket. So here the first term is a plus a. It would be multiplied by each individual term in the second bracket. Now the second term is negative b. It will be multiplied by each term in the second bracket. So let's do it together. So let's say a is multiplied by xy. So it turns into axy. The second one would be a multiplied by this term. So the coefficient negative 7, but a will be multiplied by a squared, turns into a cubed, and then b, okay? A times 3b squared a, it turned into 3b squared, but the a will be multiplied by the a, so the exponent would be 2. I'll do the same for the second term and multiply it by each term, in the second bracket, but just pay attention here that the coefficient or the sign of the second term is negative. Okay, so after doing all the multiplication, the last step would be simplification. But as you can see, there are no like terms, so that would be the final step. Let's do another multiplication. Here again, I have two brackets. The first bracket comes with two terms. The first term 2x, the second term negative 3y. The second bracket has got 1, 2, 3 terms. So I would expect 2 times 3, 6 terms before simplification. As I just mentioned, what you need to do, 2x, which is the first term, should be multiplied by each term. Okay, let's do it together. So that would be 2x cubed y cubed. Now 2x multiplied by the second term, negative 6x5 y squared. Now 2x multiplied by the last term, so that would be negative 4x squared y to the power 5. Now you should do the same for the second term and multiply it by each term. So negative 3y times x squared y cubed would be negative 3x squared y to the power 4. Now this one multiplied by this, 9x4 y3. Negative 3y by the last term would be 6x y6. Now you should see if you can find any like terms. Let's take a look. I don't think you can find any like terms, so that is the final answer. There would be no simplification. Let's do a couple of more multiplication. Here I have two square brackets, big square brackets. Inside each square bracket there is a parenthesis, and as you can see in front of each square bracket there is a number, or like negative, which is -1 actually. So what I do, I usually start with the most inner parenthesis or bracket, simplify, and I move further. So the square bracket, the bigger one, I call it A. This one I call it B. So I try to simplify. So I keep -2 and I start simplifying inside the square bracket. So the 5 is multiplied by this, 5x minus 5, and then I have -10 stays here. So this negative sign, I just keep it and try to simplify inside the big square bracket. So that would be 12 minus 63x minus 56. Now inside each bracket can be simplified. So it's 5x minus 15. Okay, now 5x minus 15, and remember there is a -2 in front, so this -2 will be multiplied by each term, -10x plus 30, and here if I simplify, that would be -63x and then -44. Okay, but remember there is a negative sign in front, so that would be plus 63x and plus 44. Okay, now from here I can identify the like terms. -10x plus 63x, which is 53x, and then 30 and 44 can be added together to get 74. One more example of multiplication. So here I have two parentheses, and the first parenthesis has got a number in front. The second one also has got a number in front. So let's do step by step. What I'll do, I multiply this 4 by each term, so that would be 12x minus 4. This 11 stands alone by itself, so it's 11. But here, negative 2, like here, I just want you to pay attention that because they're in maths, always multiplication has got priority over subtraction. So here you cannot subtract 2 from 11, but 11 would stay on its own, and this will be multiplied by this parenthesis. So don't forget to follow the orders of operation. So here negative 2 multiplied by 6x, negative 12x, negative 10, and then negative 8. So the next step would be just finding the like terms. 12x, negative 12x, they will just cancel out. But here I have negative 4, 11, 7, 7 minus 18, minus 11. So the final answer is. Next question is a little bit different. Here it says expand and simplify. So we have negative 2x in front of a parenthesis, but the parenthesis has got a binomial inside and it's raised to the power 2. As I just mentioned in my other videos, there are some special like identities or patterns in math which applies to binomials. So this one, binomial to the power 2, would be the first term. The answer would be first term to the power 2 plus 2 times first terms multiplied by the second term plus second term to the power 2. This is how you can expand it. And here the exponent has got priority over multiplication, so you have to expand the parentheses and then multiply it by negative 2x, and after that you can see if there are like terms to add or subtract. So let's do it step by step. So I keep negative 2x in front because the exponent has got priority. So as I just mentioned, that would be the first term, that's the second term, first term to the power 2, 2 times first term, second term to the power 2. Let's simplify inside the parentheses. So that would be negative 2x, 9x squared, 2 times 3, 6, 6 times 4, 24x, 4 to the power 2, 16. Now I have, this is the most simplified format. Now I have to multiply negative 2x by this parenthesis. So that turns into negative 18 cubed, negative 48x squared, and negative 32x. I like to continue this video with solving for equation. We will do some linear equation, but if you need more detailed explanation, please refer to my other videos on linear equation. So let's start with linear equation. The reason why they are called linear, because if we try to graph it, it would be the equation, it would be a line, and then, or in other terms, it because the biggest exponent is 1. So let's start with this equation. 3 multiplied by x plus 2 equals 27. So what I can do, I can simply multiply 3 by this bracket. 3x plus 6 equals 27. Remember, when we are trying to solve an equation, the final purpose is to find a numerical value for the unknown variable, or here the unknown is x. Okay, in order to do so, we have to isolate the x. The x should be on its own, and the rest of the constant should be moved to the other side. So here, in order to isolate the x, I will add negative 6 to both sides to get rid of this 6 and have the 3x on its own. So that would be 3x equals 21. And then next step would be getting x isolated. So here 3 is multiplied by x. In order to have x on its own, I will divide both sides by 3, and then the x would be 7. And please remember, whenever you have an equation or equal sign, or in math, whenever you you do something to one side of the equation, you have to do exactly the same thing to the other side. Otherwise, the balance or the equation would be distorted. Okay, so here the root is x equals 7. That means x equals 7 is a root which will satisfy the equation. So let's go back, substitute the x, and make sure we got the right answer. So 3 times, instead of x, I substituted with 7 plus 2, and let's see if it's equal to 27. Okay, so 3 times 9, 27. So that means the answer is correct. Let's do another kind of simple linear equation. The difference with the first example here is that you have a couple of constant on each side and x's on the other side. So again, have this in mind, we want to isolate the x. Okay, so one side of the equation belongs to the x and one side belongs to the constant. So what I do, first of all, I start by simplifying, adding or subtracting like terms, and then moving around. Okay, now after simplification, something really interesting came up. 4 plus 7x on one side is 7x plus 4 on the other side, which means that you can consider x to be any number. Whatever number you pick for x will satisfy both sides of the equation. So you have your answer set is infinite amount of numbers, digits or numbers. Let's do another equation. Here I have negative 3x minus 6 multiplied by bracket equals to 9. Remember, by orders of operation, you have to multiply negative 6 by this and then start simplifying. So I'll go step by step. I go negative 3x, then I multiply negative 6 by the parentheses, by the terms negative 6x plus 24 equals 9. Then I start by adding like terms. Negative 9x equals negative 15. In order to isolate it, I add both sides by negative 9. So the final answer would be negative 15 over negative 9. Or in other terms, you better report the most simple form of the answer. So x would be 5 over 3. Let's do a few other linear equations. Here I have negative 3 plus t, the unknown variable is t, equals to negative 9. In order to isolate the unknown variable, I add plus 3 to both sides. So that would be t equals negative 6, and that's your final answer. So it's a one-step linear equation. Here I brought you another one-step kind of linear equation, but the only difference here is that instead of whole numbers, I'm using fractions. So working with a fraction is a little bit tricky, especially when they do not have the same denominator. So let's see here, 24 and is a constant. Negative 7 over 10 is another constant, and your unknown variable is r. So in order to isolate the unknown variable, I add plus 7 over 3 to both sides. So I would have 24 plus 7 over 10 equals r. As you can see here, these two fractions, because 24 can be considered as 24 over 1. So these two fractions, they don't have the same denominator, and we cannot add them together. Before adding together, we have to make sure the two fractions which are added or subtracted have got the same denominator, and the process of getting them similar denominator is called common denominator. The most simple common denominator here would be the multiplication of the two. So I consider the common denominator to be 10. Here, in order to get 10, that means this one is multiplied by 10. So this one should be must be multiplied by 10. And then here, 10 isn't changed, so 7 doesn't change. And then from here, I can simply add the 247 divided by 10 equals R. Let's do another linear equation. 8 minus 25 equals 8 plus x minus 21. The unknown variable is x. I can simplify this side and this side as well. So on the first side, I would have negative 17, and on this side I would have x minus 13. In order to isolate the x, I add plus 13 to both sides, so the x would be negative 4. Okay, let's do another linear equation with fractions. So here the unknown variable is x, the coefficient is 1, but there are 3 different fractions, and each one the denominator is 2, 17, and 2. So what I do, I will start simplifying on this side, okay, and then move this one to the other side and then get the value for x. So let's do common denominator on this side. 34 would be a very perfect option. So here, as you can see, 17 has been multiplied by 2, so the 5 should be multiplied by 2. That would be 10. Here, 2 has been multiplied by 17, so 3 should be multiplied by 17. And on this side, after simplification, the answer would be negative 41 over 34. Okay, so now the next step would be adding plus 3 over 2 to both sides, okay, to isolate the x. So the x would be negative 41 over 34 plus 3 over 2. Here I have to do another common denominator. So what I'll do here, in order to do common denominator, I consider it to be 34. So 34, this one isn't changed. The whole fraction will, would be unchanged. But the second fraction, as you can see, it's been multiplied by 17. So 17. So it turns to 51. The final answer is 10 over 34. Another linear equation here would be negative 21 multiplied by the unknown variable equals to negative 126. In order to isolate, here is multiply, so I have to do the opposite operation. So I divide both sides by negative 21, and then the unknown variable, which here happens to be w, is negative 126 divided by negative 21. Negative acted on another negative would be positive. 126 divided by 21 is 6. Let's continue with another simple linear equation. Yet I just realized most of the students have got issues with doing fractions, especially when they have to do multiplication or common denominator. That's why I brought it up here. So here, negative 2 over 3 has been multiplied by x. And in order to isolate the x, I have to divide both sides by this exact coefficient. So I divide both sides by negative 2 over 3. This will cancel out with this. But here, x would be 6 divided by this thing. Here, we are dividing two fractions, right? Because 6 is actually 6 divided by 1. So when we are dealing with division of two fractions, the first fraction is written, then this division sign is turned into multiplication, but instead the second fraction is flipped. So it will turn into negative 3 over 2. The final answer would be negative 18 over 2, and the answer after simplification, it's negative 9. Here there is another linear equation. The unknown variable is divided by negative 8. So we have to do the opposite, right? The opposite operation to isolate the x. What we can do, we will multiply both sides by negative 8. So negative 8 will cancel out with this one, which is negative 1 over 8. And this side, remember, whatever I do to one side should be exactly done to the second side. So x would be negative 16 multiplied by negative 8. And the final answer is 128. Couple of more. So here, before we proceed to solve this one, I can simplify both sides by 3. So 2y negative 3 would be 27 by divided by 3, which is 9. Because I believe working with the smaller numbers is much easier. So if you can, simplify without starting to solve the equation, if you can simplify by constant or something, do so. Here, the equation turns into 2y minus 3 equals to 9. I have to isolate the y, so I add plus 3 to both sides and then divide both sides by 2 to get y equals 6. The next equation that I have here, it's combination of addition and kind of multiplication, I would say. Here you have to simplify first. So this negative sign will flip the sign of these two and change it into 5r, negative 2r, negative 8 equals to 16. I have to simplify, so 3r would be equals to negative 8 will be moved to the other side, so it will be 24. So I divide both sides by 3 to get r as 8. 8 is the final answer. The last equation that I brought you here is actually multiplication of two brackets and then the x, but the final answer is 0. I've also mentioned in one of my videos, if a few or many, whatever, algebraic expression are multiplied to one another, right? And the answer is equal to 0. So that means any of the parentheses or brackets are potential 0. So that means A could be 0, B could be 0, C could be 0. But the only condition is that the operation in between the parentheses is multiplication. So here, the same rule applies here. Multiplication, multiplication. So instead of, multiplying and getting a very complex cubic, expression, I just follow this rule and I would say if this is 0, that means either this one is 0 or this bracket is 0 or this one. And from each one, I will find a unique x or a unique root. So x could be 0. If the second bracket is 0, that means x divided by 4 minus 1 over 2 is 0. From here, the answer would be 2. Or ultimately, the third bracket could also be 0. So from here, I would say the x would be 3 over 7. And this specific equation has got 3 roots, 0, 2, 3 over 7. I hope this video helps you with basic algebra. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and watch my other videos. Thank you.